Lieutenant Daniel Carter leaned back in his chair on the bridge of the Eclipse, staring at the endless expanse of stars stretching across the viewport. The ship's soft hum was the only sound breaking the silence. Beside him, Ensign Laura Hayes sat focused on her console, her fingers dancing over the controls as she scanned the surrounding space. It was a quiet day, just like every other day during their 6-month mission to map unexplored sectors of the galaxy. "Anything yet?" Daniel asked, breaking the monotony. Laura shook her head without looking up. Nothing unusual so far, just empty space and more rocks. Daniel sighed and rubbed his eyes. Missions like this were supposed to be routine, long hours of boredom interrupted by brief moments of discovery. But today felt different. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen. Maybe it was the way the stars seemed too still, or maybe it was just his imagination playing tricks on him after weeks of isolation. Suddenly, an alert beeped from Laura's console. She straightened immediately, her brow furrowing as she studied the readings. "Wait, there's something here," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. Daniel turned toward her screen. A blip had appeared on the long-range sensors, a large object drifting near the edge of their sector. At first glance, it looked like an asteroid, but the shape was too perfect, too symmetrical. "That's no rock," he muttered under his breath. They adjusted the ship's course to get a closer look. As they approached, the object came into focus. A massive vessel, sleek and metallic, with sharp angles and glowing blue lines running along its surface. It was unlike any human-made ship Daniel had ever seen. There were no visible windows, no signs of life, but the design screamed purpose. "What do you think it is?" Laura asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Daniel replied, his mind racing. "But we're going to find out." Against protocol, he decided to board the mysterious craft. They suited up in their environmental gear and used the Eclipse-IS docking bay to attach to the alien ship. The airlock opened with surprising ease, revealing a dark corridor lit only by faint pulses of light emanating from the walls. Strange symbols glowed softly beside them, written in a language neither of them recognized. "This place gives me the creeps," Laura admitted, clutching her scanner tightly. "Stay close," Daniel ordered, his hand resting on the weapon strapped to his side. Every step echoed loudly in the eerie silence. The ship was completely deserted, yet everything seemed functional. The hum of machinery, the subtle vibrations beneath their feet. It all pointed to recent activity. As they explored deeper, Laura stopped suddenly. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a panel embedded in the wall. After tinkering with it for a moment, she managed to access some kind of log. Lines of alien text scrolled across the screen, accompanied by images of star systems and planets. Some of those planets looked familiar. "It's a map," Laura whispered, realization dawning on her face. "They've been mapping our territory." Daniel frowned, his unease growing. "Why would they need a map unless—" His words trailed off as another thought struck him. This wasn't just any ship. It was a Recon vessel. Whoever these aliens were, they weren't tourists. They were gathering information, studying humanity's weaknesses. And if this was just one ship, what else was out there? "We need to report this," Daniel said firmly. Now, but even as they hurried back to the Eclipse, both knew deep down that their discovery might already be too late. Whatever these aliens had planned, humanity wasn't ready for it. Back on Earth, the mood at command was tense. Lieutenant Daniel Carter and Ensign Laura Hayes stood in front of Admiral Erickson, a gruff man with steel-gray hair and a no-nonsense attitude. His office was dimly lit, the walls lined with maps of star systems and holographic displays showing fleet deployments. He sat behind his desk, arms crossed, listening to their report. "So, let me get this straight," Erickson said, his voice low and sharp. "You found an alien ship abandoned, and now you're telling me it's some kind of recon mission? Do you have any proof?" Daniel nodded quickly, trying to stay calm. "Yes, sir. We accessed their logs. They've been mapping our systems, studying planets, even marking key locations like Earth itself." Laura stepped forward, holding up her datapad. Sir, we translated part of their language. It's clear they're not just exploring. They're planning something big. This wasn't random. Erickson glanced at the screen but didn't seem convinced. One ship doesn't mean war, he said dismissively. For all we know, it could have been rogue scavengers or even a lost expedition. Until we see more evidence, I'm not jumping to conclusions. Captain Samantha Monroe, who had been standing quietly in the corner, finally spoke up. She was younger than Erickson, with sharp features and a determined expression. With all due respect, sir, ignoring this could be a mistake. If what Lieutenant Carter and Ensign Hayes say is true, we might be facing a serious threat. Shouldn't we investigate further? Erickson leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. Investigate? With what resources? Half our fleet is spread thin across the frontier already. I won't waste ships chasing shadows. The room fell silent for a moment. Daniel exchanged a worried glance with Laura. They knew how important this was, but without support from higher-ups, there wasn't much they could do. Samantha, however, wasn't ready to give up. Sir, if I may, she continued, her tone firm but respectful. We can't afford to wait until they come knocking on our doorstep. Let me take a small team, just a few ships to follow up on their findings. If there's even a chance they're right, we need to act now. Erickson hesitated, clearly torn between caution and action. Finally, he sighed. Fine, but don't expect reinforcements if things go south. And remember, one wrong move and you'll answer to me. Samantha nodded curtly. Understood. As they left the office, Samantha turned to Daniel and Laura. You two did good bringing this to us. Now it's time to dig deeper. She gave them a reassuring smile, though her eyes betrayed her concern. I'll assemble a team tonight. Be ready to leave first thing tomorrow. Later that evening, rumors began spreading through the base about the mysterious alien ship. Some dismissed it as nonsense, while others whispered about an impending invasion. In the mess hall, Daniel overheard snippets of conversation. They say those aliens wiped out entire colonies. One soldier muttered nervously. Don't listen to that garbage, another replied. Probably just a glitch in their sensors. Despite the skepticism, scientists worked tirelessly to analyze the data brought back by Daniel and Laura. Hidden away in a lab, Dr. Emily Ross pored over the alien symbols, her brow furrowed in concentration. She had spent hours deciphering fragments of the language, piecing together bits of information. What she discovered sent chills down her spine. These coordinates, she murmured to herself, pointing to a series of numbers on her screen. They're targeting multiple systems, including ours. Her assistant looked alarmed. You mean, they're coming here? Emily nodded grimly. It looks that way, and if this ship was just a scout, then the real force must be enormous. Word of her findings reached Samantha, who immediately called an emergency meeting with her newly formed team. Alongside Daniel and Laura, she recruited Corporal Ryan Mitchell, a seasoned Marine known for his tactical skills, and Dr. Emily Ross, herself whose expertise would be invaluable. We don't have much time, Samantha told the group, her voice steady but urgent. If we want to stop them, we need to find out where they're hiding, and fast. The weight of the mission settled heavily on everyone's shoulders. None of them knew exactly what lay ahead, but one thing was certain: humanity's fate depended on their success. The Odyssey glided silently through the vast emptiness of space, its sleek design blending seamlessly with the darkness. Captain Samantha Monroe stood on the bridge, her sharp eyes scanning the monitors as the ship moved closer to its destination. The coordinates from the alien Recon vessel had led them to a distant star system, one that was barely charted in human records. It was supposed to be uninhabited, but something about it felt wrong. Lieutenant Daniel Carter sat at the navigation console, his fingers tapping nervously against the controls. Ensign Laura Hayes stood nearby, double-checking the sensor readings. Both were tense, their minds replaying the eerie encounter with the alien ship over and over again. They weren't alone this time, though. Corporal Ryan Mitchell, a tall man with a no-nonsense attitude, leaned against the wall near the back of the bridge, his arms crossed tightly. Beside him, Dr. Emily Ross adjusted her glasses, scrolling through pages of data on her tablet. We're approaching the target area, Daniel announced, breaking the silence. No signs of activity yet. Samantha nodded. Keep scanning. If they left anything behind, we need to find it. As the Odyssey entered the system, the view outside the viewport grew darker. The stars seemed dimmer here, almost swallowed by the void. But what caught everyone's attention were the planets, or rather, what remained of them. One by one, the sensors picked up traces of devastation. Entire colonies had been wiped out, leaving behind nothing but scorched surfaces and shattered orbital stations. What happened here? Laura whispered, her voice trembling. Ryan stepped forward, his jaw tightening as he studied the images on the screen. Whatever did this wasn't just looking for resources. This was extermination. Emily frowned, adjusting her glasses again. It's like they wanted to send a message, a warning. Samantha clenched her fists, her knuckles turning white. If this is what they're capable of, we're running out of time. The crew continued their search, moving cautiously from one ruined planet to the next. On the third world, they found a derelict research station floating lifelessly in orbit. Its outer hull was cracked and scarred, evidence of a brutal attack. Despite the risks, Samantha ordered the team to investigate. Suit up, she said firmly. We need answers. Inside the station, the air was cold and stale, heavy with the weight of death. The corridors were littered with debris, and the walls bore scorch marks from weapons fire. Daniel led the way, his weapon drawn, while Laura stayed close, holding a scanner to detect any signs of movement. Ryan brought up the rear, his eyes darting around suspiciously. This place is a tomb, Ryan muttered under his breath. Emily paused by a damaged terminal, trying to access whatever data might still be intact. Her hands shook slightly as she worked, but determination kept her focused. After a few minutes, fragments of information began appearing on the screen. Logs, security footage, and distress signals. They knew they were going to die. Emily said softly, reading through the entries. They tried to warn someone, but no one came. Laura glanced at her, her face pale. Do you think anyone survived? Before Emily could answer, a faint sound echoed through the corridor, a low mechanical whirring. Everyone froze, their hearts pounding. Slowly, Daniel raised his weapon, motioning for the others to stay behind him. The sound grew louder, coming from deeper within the station. Stay alert, Samantha ordered, her voice steady despite the tension. We don't know what's waiting for us. As they crept forward, the truth became clearer. They weren't alone. Whatever had attacked, this station might still be lurking in the shadows, watching, waiting, and if they weren't careful, the same fate could await them. The sound grew louder as the team moved deeper into the derelict research station. Each step felt heavier, their boots crunching against broken glass and twisted metal. Lieutenant Daniel Carter led the way, his weapon raised and his eyes scanning every shadow. Behind him, Ensign Laura Hayes clutched her scanner tightly, its faint beeping the only noise besides the eerie hum filling the corridor. Corporal Ryan Mitchell stayed close to Dr. Emily Ross, ready to shield her if anything or anyone appeared. This place gives me the creeps, Laura whispered, her voice barely audible over the tension in the air. You're not alone, Daniel replied without looking back. His grip tightened on his weapon as he turned a corner. The hallway ahead was darker than the others, the lights flickering weakly before dying out completely. He signaled for everyone to stop and switched, on a flashlight attached to his helmet. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing strange markings etched into the walls, symbols that matched those found on the alien Recon vessel. They've been here, Emily said quietly, stepping forward to examine the markings. These symbols are warnings, maybe even instructions. Ryan frowned, glancing around uneasily. Instructions for what? How to kill everyone? Before Emily could respond, the mechanical whirring returned, louder this time. It seemed to come from all directions, bouncing off the walls and making it impossible to pinpoint its source. Then, suddenly, movement caught Daniel's eye, a flash of something metallic darting into an adjacent room. There! He shouted, rushing toward the doorway. The others followed, their footsteps echoing loudly in the confined space. Inside the room, they found themselves face to face with the aliens for the first time. 3 tall, insectoid creatures stood at the far end of the chamber, their elongated limbs clicking softly as they shifted positions. Their bodies were covered in a dark chitinous exoskeleton, and glowing blue patterns pulsed along their arms and torsos. Large, multifaceted eyes locked onto the humans, radiating intelligence and hostility. "Stay back," Daniel ordered, raising his weapon. But the aliens didn't hesitate. With astonishing speed, they lunged forward, emitting high-pitched screeches that sent chills down everyone's spines. Ryan reacted instantly, pushing Emily behind him and firing his rifle. The shot struck one of the creatures, causing it to stagger but not fall. Its companions retaliated, unleashing bursts of energy from devices strapped to their forearms. Bright flashes illuminated the room as the team scrambled for cover. "We can't take them head on," Samantha yelled from the doorway where she had just entered. She quickly assessed the situation and pointed to a narrow passage leading out of the room. "Fall back now." Daniel fired a few more rounds to create some distance, then grabbed Laura's arm and pulled her toward the exit. Ryan covered their retreat, laying down suppressive fire while Emily stumbled after them, clutching her tablet like a lifeline. The aliens pursued relentlessly, their movements unnervingly precise. As they reached the passage, Samantha activated a portable barrier device, sealing off the entrance with a shimmering force field. The alien slammed against it repeatedly, but it held firm, for now. "Keep moving," Samantha commanded. "We need to get back to the ship." No one argued. They ran as fast as they could, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. The aliens' shrieks faded into the distance, replaced by the deafening silence of the ruined station. For a brief moment, they allowed themselves to hope they might escape alive. But deep down, they knew this encounter was only the beginning. Whatever these creatures were, they weren't just invaders, they were hunters, and humanity was their prey. Back aboard the Odyssey, the team gathered in the briefing room, their faces pale and drawn. The encounter with the aliens had left them shaken, but they couldn't afford to lose focus. Every second counted if they wanted to stop the looming threat. Captain Samantha Monroe paced back and forth, her boots clicking against the metal floor. She stopped near the table where Dr. Emily Ross was working, her tablet covered in notes and sketches of the alien symbols. "We need answers," Samantha said firmly, her voice cutting through the tense silence. "Emily, tell me you've made progress." Emily pushed her glasses up her nose and nodded. "I've been analyzing the symbols we found on the station. They're not just random. They form a kind of language. I think I can translate parts of it, but it's going to take time." "Time is something we don't have," Ryan muttered from his seat. His rifle lay on the table in front of him, its barrel still warm from the fight. He glanced at Daniel, who sat quietly, staring at the wall. "What are we supposed to do? Wait around while those things figure out how to find us?" "No," Samantha replied sharply. "We act. We use what we know and hit them before they regroup. But first we need to understand why they attacked that station and whether there are more of them nearby." Laura spoke up hesitantly, her voice soft but steady. "The scanner picked up faint energy signatures when we were leaving. If we go back, we might be able to track them." Daniel shook his head. "Too risky. Those things are fast and deadly. If we step into their territory again without a plan, we're dead." Ryan leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "Then what's your plan, genius? Sit here and hope they don't come knocking?" Before Daniel could respond, Emily interrupted. "Wait, there's something else." She turned her tablet toward the group, showing a series of patterns she had decoded. "These symbols, they mention coordinates, not just one location, but several. It looks like they're planning multiple strikes." Samantha's eyes narrowed. "Where are these coordinates pointing?" Emily hesitated, scrolling through the data. "One of them leads to Earth." The room fell silent. Everyone exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of Emily's words sinking in. If the aliens were targeting Earth, humanity was running out of time. "There's more," Emily added nervously. "The Recon vessel we found earlier. It wasn't lost or abandoned. It was left behind deliberately. Like bait." Daniel frowned. "You're saying this whole thing was a trap?" Emily nodded. Yes, and if we're right, the real fleet is already on its way. Samantha clenched her fists, her mind racing. We need to warn Earth Command, now. But even as she gave the order, doubt lingered in her mind. Would Admiral Erickson believe them this time? Or would he dismiss their warnings again, leaving Earth defenseless? As the crew prepared to send an urgent transmission, Ryan stood abruptly. There's no guarantee they'll listen. What if we're too late? Samantha looked at him, her expression grim. Then we fight. No matter what happens, we protect Earth, at any cost. Hours later, the message was sent, but there was no immediate reply. The Odyssey drifted silently through space, its crew on edge. In the lab, Emily worked tirelessly, trying to decipher more of the alien language. She replayed fragments of audio, recorded during the attack, hoping to find a clue about their intentions. Suddenly, one of the recordings caught her attention. A repeating phrase, spoken in a guttural tone, seemed different from the others. Using her translation software, she isolated the sound and ran it through multiple algorithms. When the results appeared on her screen, her heart skipped a beat. They're coming, she whispered to herself. And they're closer than we thought. She rushed to the bridge to share her discovery, but before she could speak, alarms blared throughout the ship. The sensors had picked up movement, a massive fleet emerging from hyperspace heading straight for them. They found us, Laura said, her voice trembling. Samantha gripped the railing, her jaw set. Battle stations. We're not going down without a fight. The bridge of the Odyssey erupted into chaos as alarms blared and red warning lights flashed across the walls. Lieutenant Daniel Carter scrambled to his station, his fingers flying over the controls as he tried to assess the situation. Ensign Laura Hayes stood beside him, her face pale but focused as she monitored the incoming fleet on the main screen. They're moving fast, Laura said, her voice tight with urgency. At least 30 ships, and they're bigger than anything we've seen before. Captain Samantha Monroe gripped the railing at the center of the bridge, her eyes locked on the display. The alien fleet was massive, a swarm of sleek angular vessels bristling with weapons. They loomed in the distance like predators circling their prey. Shields up, she ordered sharply. Divert all power to engines and weapons. We need to be ready. Corporal Ryan Mitchell stormed onto the bridge, already suited up for combat. What's the plan? He demanded, his tone gruff but controlled. We can't take them head on. Samantha turned to him, her expression grim. We won't, not yet. Our priority is buying time, getting word back to Earth if we can. But if it comes down to it, we make sure they don't get past us. As the alien ships drew closer, the crew prepared for battle. Dr. Emily Ross joined them on the bridge, clutching, her tablet tightly. Her hands trembled, but her mind was racing. She had spent hours decoding fragments of the alien language, searching for any advantage they could use. Now, staring at the approaching fleet, she felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. Captain, Emily said hesitantly, stepping forward. There's something you should know. I think I can communicate with them. Everyone turned to look at her, disbelief written across their faces. Ryan crossed his arms, his skepticism clear. You want to talk to those things? After what they did back there? It's not about trust, Emily replied quickly. It's about understanding. If we can figure out why they're here, what they want, we might be able to stop this without more bloodshed. Samantha hesitated, weighing the risks. Time was running out. The aliens were almost within firing range. Finally, she nodded. Do it, but be quick. Emily rushed to a console, pulling up the audio files she had been studying. She selected a phrase from the alien recordings, a repeating sequence that seemed to carry significance. Using the ship's communication system, she broadcast the message into space, hoping against hope that it would reach the right ears. For a moment, nothing happened. The alien fleet continued its advance, undeterred. Then, suddenly, the lead ship slowed, breaking formation. A response came through, a series of sharp guttural sounds accompanied by bursts of static. They heard us, Emily whispered, her heart pounding. She worked quickly, piecing together a rudimentary translation. They're asking why we're here. Samantha stepped closer, leaning over Emily's shoulder. Tell them we mean no harm, that we came seeking answers. Emily typed furiously, sending another message. The reply came almost instantly, harsh and clipped. She frowned, struggling to interpret the meaning. They say they don't believe us. They think we're lying. Ryan groaned, pacing anxiously. Great. So much for diplomacy. Before anyone could react further, the alien fleet resumed its advance. Energy beams streaked across space, narrowly missing the Odyssey. The crew braced themselves as the ship shuddered under the impact of return fire. Weapons online, Daniel shouted, targeting one of the smaller alien vessels. Firing! The Odyssey unleashed a volley of missiles, striking the enemy craft and causing it to veer off course. But the victory was short-lived. More ships closed in, surrounding them like wolves. We can't hold them off forever, Laura said, her voice trembling. What do we do? Samantha clenched her fists, determination burning in her eyes. We fight. For Earth. For everyone waiting back home. As the battle raged on, Emily returned to her console, refusing to give up. If words wouldn't work, maybe actions would. She began broadcasting another message, one designed to show humanity's resolve. It wasn't surrender, but it wasn't aggression either. Somewhere between fear and hope, she prayed the aliens would listen. The battle outside the Odyssey intensified, the ship rocking violently as energy blasts tore through space. Lieutenant Daniel Carter gripped his console tightly, sweat dripping down his forehead as he tried to keep the vessel steady. Ensign Laura, Hayes worked frantically beside him, rerouting power to the shields while monitoring enemy movements. Each hit from the alien fleet sent shockwaves through the ship, testing its limits and the crew's resolve. They're targeting our engines, Laura shouted over the noise of another explosion. If they disable us, we're done for. Not on my watch, Daniel muttered under his breath. He adjusted the thrusters, weaving the Odyssey through a hailstorm of enemy fire. The smaller human ship was outmatched, but its speed and agility gave them a fighting chance. On the bridge, Captain Samantha Monroe stood firm, barking orders with precision. Keep evading, fire at will, aim for their weapons arrays. Her voice cut through the chaos like a blade, keeping the crew focused despite the odds. Corporal Ryan Mitchell manned one of the gun turrets, unleashing bursts of plasma at the nearest alien ships. His hands moved instinctively, years of combat training taking over. Eat this, you bugs, he growled as one of his shots struck an enemy vessel, causing it to spiral out of control. But for every ship they damaged, 2 more seemed to take its place. Dr. Emily Ross remained hunched over her console, still trying to communicate with the aliens. Her earlier attempts had sparked curiosity but not trust, and now she was desperate. She replayed fragments of their language alongside human messages, phrases like peace and cooperation. It felt futile, but she refused to stop. If there was even a slim chance of averting disaster, she had to try. Suddenly, the lead alien ship broke formation, moving closer to the Odyssey. Its massive frame loomed ominously in the viewport, dwarfing the human craft. A transmission crackled through the speakers, distorted but clear enough to understand. This time, the message wasn't hostile. It sounded almost curious. They're asking about Earth, Emily said quickly, translating the garbled sounds. They want to know why we've come so far. Samantha stepped forward, her expression calm but commanding. Tell them we came to protect what's ours, to defend our home. Emily relayed the message, her fingers trembling as she typed. The response came moments later, slower this time, as if the aliens were deliberating. Then, unexpectedly, their fleet halted its advance. What's happening? Ryan asked, lowering his weapon slightly. Why'd they stop? I don't know, Emily admitted, staring at the screen. But I think they're listening. The pause gave the crew a moment to regroup. Shields were holding for now, but the damage to the Odyssey was severe. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits and smoke filled the corridors. Still, no one dared relax. One wrong move could reignite the fight. Samantha turned to her team. We need to press our advantage. Emily, keep talking to them. Find out what They want. Everyone else prepare for anything. As Emily continued her efforts, something remarkable happened. The alien commander broadcast a new message, not aggressive, but cautious. Through fragmented translations, Emily pieced together their intent. They hadn't expected humanity to resist so fiercely. Their recon vessel had painted Earth as weak and divided, easy prey, but the crew of the Odyssey had proven otherwise. They underestimated us, Emily said softly, her voice tinged with awe. And now they're reconsidering. Samantha nodded, a flicker of hope crossing her face. Then let's make sure they remember this lesson. But just as tensions began to ease, a new threat emerged. A second wave of alien ships appeared on the sensors, larger, faster, and far more menacing than the first. These weren't scouts or negotiators. They were warriors, here to finish the job. We're out of time, Daniel said grimly, watching. The readings spike. They're coming in hot. Ryan clenched his jaw, gripping his weapon tighter. Guess diplomacy's off the table. Samantha took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. Then we fight. For Earth. For everything we stand for. The crew exchanged determined glances, united by a shared purpose. Outnumbered and outgunned, they prepared to face the storm head-on. Whatever happened next, they would go down swinging. The second wave of alien ships descended like a storm, their sleek forms slicing through space with terrifying speed. The Odyssey rocked violently as the first barrage of energy blasts hit its shields, pushing them to the brink of collapse. Lieutenant Daniel Carter gritted his teeth, his hands moving furiously over the controls to keep the ship from being overwhelmed. "Shields are down to 20%, he shouted, his voice barely audible over the alarms blaring across the bridge. Ensign Laura Hayes worked alongside him, rerouting auxiliary power to reinforce the failing defenses. Her face was pale but determined as she called out updates. "They're targeting our weapon systems next. If they knock those out, we're finished." Captain Samantha Monroe stood at the center of the chaos, her sharp eyes scanning the monitors. She knew they couldn't hold out much longer. "Ryan, get to the lower deck and man the manual turrets," she ordered. "We need every advantage we can get." Corporal Ryan Mitchell didn't hesitate. He sprinted toward the hatch, shouting, back over his shoulder, "You'd better not let this bucket fall apart while I'm gone." As Ryan disappeared into the corridor, Dr. Emily Ross remained glued to her console, still trying to communicate with the aliens. Her earlier efforts had sparked curiosity, but now, with the second wave attacking, it felt like throwing words into a hurricane. Still, she refused to give up. She typed furiously, sending another message. "We don't want war. We seek understanding." Teal. Response came almost instantly, a single phrase that made her heart sink. "Too late," Emily whispered, translating the guttural sounds. "They say it's too late." Samantha turned to her, her expression grim. "What does that mean?" "Too late for what?" Before Emily could answer, the bridge shook violently as another blast struck the ship. Sparks flew from a damaged panel, forcing Laura to duck. "We're losing structural integrity," she cried. "If we take one more direct hit..." "We won't," Samantha interrupted firmly. "Daniel, pull us back. We need distance to regroup." But before Daniel could act, a new transmission crackled through the speakers. This time, it wasn't from the alien fleet. It was from Earth Command. Admiral Erickson's stern voice filled the room. "Odyssey, report your status immediately. What's happening out there?" Samantha hesitated, torn between relief and frustration. Finally, she stepped up to the comms. "Admiral, we're under heavy fire. The alien fleet has arrived in full force. They've already launched 2 waves, and we can't hold them off alone." There was a long pause on the other end. When Erickson spoke again, his tone was gruff but urgent. "Reinforcements are en route, but they won't reach you for at least 12 hours. You'll have to hold the line until then." 12 hours, Daniel muttered, shaking his head. "We'll be lucky to last 12 minutes. Samantha ignored him, focusing on the task at hand. "Understood, sir. We'll do everything we can." As she cut the transmission, she turned to her team. Listen up. We've got reinforcements. Coming, but we need to buy time. Everyone knows their role. Stick to it no matter what. Down on the lower deck, Ryan manned the manual turrets, unleashing a relentless barrage of fire at the incoming alien ships. His aim was deadly accurate, taking out several smaller vessels. But for every enemy he destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. Sweat dripped down his face as he fought, his muscles aching from the strain. "Come on, you ugly bugs," he growled, squeezing the trigger again. "Is that all you've got?" Back on the bridge, Emily noticed something strange on her screen. One of the alien ships, the largest one, was broadcasting a signal that differed from the others. It wasn't aggressive, it almost sounded conflicted. Her eyes widened as she realized what it might mean. "Captain," she said urgently, "I think some of them are questioning their orders. There's dissent in their ranks." Samantha frowned. "Are you sure?" "I'm not certain," Emily admitted, "but if we can exploit that, maybe we can turn the tide." Without hesitation, Samantha made a bold decision. "Emily, broadcast this message to their entire fleet. Your leaders lied to you. Humanity isn't weak. We're united. Stand down or face the consequences." The message went out, echoing through space. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, the largest alien ship began to drift away from the battle, followed by several others. Confusion rippled through the alien fleet as their forces splintered. "They're retreating?" Laura asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Not all of them," Daniel replied, pointing to a group of ships still advancing. "Some are staying behind." Samantha clenched her fists. "Then we finish this. Fire everything we've got left." With renewed determination, the crew unleashed their final assault. The remaining alien ships fought fiercely, but the Odyssey held its ground, battered but unbroken. In the end, the invaders broke formation and fled, leaving the humans victorious. For now. As the dust settled, Samantha let out a shaky breath. "Good work, everyone. But this isn't over. Not yet." The second wave of alien ships descended like a storm, their sleek forms slicing through space with terrifying speed. The Odyssey rocked violently as the first barrage of energy blasts hit its shields, pushing them to the brink of collapse. Lieutenant Daniel Carter gritted his teeth, his hands moving furiously over the controls to keep the ship from being overwhelmed. "Shields are down to 20%, he shouted, his voice barely audible over the alarms blaring across the bridge. Ensign Laura Hayes worked alongside him, rerouting auxiliary power to reinforce the failing defenses. Her face was pale but determined as she called out updates. "They're targeting our weapon systems next. If they knock those out, we're finished." Captain Samantha Monroe stood at the center of the chaos, her sharp eyes scanning the monitors. She knew they couldn't hold out much longer. "Ryan, get to the lower deck and man the manual turrets," she ordered. "We need every advantage we can get." Corporal Ryan Mitchell didn't hesitate. He sprinted toward the hatch, shouting back over his shoulder, "You'd better not let this bucket fall apart while I'm gone." As Ryan disappeared into the corridor, Dr. Emily Ross remained glued to her console, still trying to communicate with the aliens. Her earlier efforts had sparked curiosity, but now, with the second wave attacking, it felt like throwing words into a hurricane. Still, she refused to give up. She typed furiously, sending another message. "We don't want, or we seek understanding." The response came almost instantly, a single phrase that made her heart sink. "Too late," Emily whispered, translating the guttural sounds. "They say, it's too late." Samantha turned to her, her expression grim. "What does that mean? Too late for what?" Before Emily could answer, the bridge shook violently as another blast struck the ship. Sparks flew from a damaged panel, forcing Laura to duck. "We're losing structural integrity," she cried. "If we take one more direct hit, we won't," Samantha interrupted firmly. "Daniel, pull us back. We need distance to regroup." But before Daniel could act, a new transmission crackled through the speakers. This time it wasn't from the alien fleet. It was from Earth Command. Admiral Erickson's stern voice filled the room. Odyssey, report your status immediately. What's happening out there? Samantha hesitated, torn between relief and frustration. Finally, she stepped up to the comms. Admiral, we're under heavy fire. The alien fleet has arrived in full force. They've already launched 2 waves and we can't hold them off alone. There was a long pause on the other end. When Erickson spoke again, his tone was gruff but urgent. Reinforcements are en route, but they won't reach you for at least 12 hours. You'll have to hold the line until then. 12 hours? Daniel muttered, shaking his head. We'll be lucky to last 12 minutes. Samantha ignored him, focusing on the task at hand. Understood, sir. We'll do everything we can. As she cut the transmission, she turned to her team. Listen up. We've got reinforcements coming, but we need to buy time. Everyone knows their role. Stick to it no matter what. Down on the lower deck, Ryan manned the manual turrets, unleashing a relentless barrage of fire at the incoming alien ships. His aim was deadly accurate, taking out several smaller vessels. But for every enemy he destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. Sweat dripped down his face as he fought, his muscles aching from the strain. Come on, you ugly bugs, he growled, squeezing the trigger again. Is that all you've got? Back on the bridge, Emily noticed something strange on her screen. One of the alien ships, the largest one, was broadcasting a signal that differed from the others. It wasn't aggressive. It almost sounded conflicted. Her eyes widened as she realized what it might mean. Captain, she said urgently, I think some of them are questioning their orders. There's dissent in their ranks. Samantha frowned. Are you sure? I'm not certain, Emily admitted. But if we can exploit that, maybe we can turn the tide. Without hesitation, Samantha made a bold decision. Emily, broadcast this message to their entire fleet. Your leaders lied to you. Humanity isn't weak, we're united. Stand down or face the consequences. The message went out, echoing through space. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, the largest alien ship began to drift away from the battle, followed by several others. Confusion rippled through the alien fleet as their forces splintered. They're retreating? Laura asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. Not all of them, Daniel replied, pointing to a group of ships still advancing. Some are staying behind. Samantha clenched her fists. Then we finish this. Fire everything we've got left. With renewed determination, the crew unleashed their final assault. The remaining alien ships fought fiercely, but the Odyssey held its ground, battered but unbroken. In the end, the invaders broke formation and fled, leaving the humans victorious, for now. As the dust settled, Samantha let out a shaky breath. Good work, everyone. But this isn't over. Not yet. The meeting took place aboard a small, neutral vessel floating in the vast emptiness of space. Captain Samantha Monroe led the human delegation, flanked by Lieutenant Daniel Carter, Ensign Laura Hayes, and Dr. Emily Ross. Corporal Ryan Mitchell stayed close, his hand never far from his weapon, ready for anything. The alien commander arrived with a small group of its kind, their insectoid forms towering over the humans. Their glowing patterns pulsed softly, as if mirroring their emotions, or perhaps just their caution. The atmosphere was tense. Neither side trusted the other, but both knew this was their best chance to avoid further bloodshed. A holographic interface hovered between them, displaying symbols and phrases that Emily had painstakingly translated. She stood at the center, acting as the bridge between 2 species separated by light years and language. We come in peace, Samantha began, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. We don't want war. We seek understanding. The alien commander tilted its head, its multifaceted eyes scanning the humans carefully. Emily translated its response. They say they came seeking knowledge, but fear drove them to violence. Samantha nodded slowly. Fear can make us do things we regret, but it doesn't have to control us. Tell them we're willing to share our worlds, if they promise not to harm ours. Emily relayed the message, her hands trembling slightly as she typed. The aliens exchanged low guttural sounds, their glowing patterns shifting rapidly. After a long pause, the commander spoke again. They ask, "Why should they trust you?" "Because we've shown we're strong enough to fight back, but wise enough to choose peace," Samantha replied without hesitation. "If your leaders misled you about humanity, then let this be proof that we're not what they claimed." Ryan shifted uncomfortably, keeping a wary eye on the aliens. "You really think they'll buy this?" he muttered under his breath. "They have to," Daniel whispered back. "It's the only way." The negotiation dragged on for hours, each word weighed and measured. Emily worked tirelessly, ensuring every phrase was clear and accurate. Slowly, painfully, progress began to emerge. The aliens agreed to withdraw their forces for now and halt any further attacks. In return, humanity promised to share certain technologies and resources, provided strict boundaries were respected. As the final terms were set, the alien commander stepped forward, extending one of its long, segmented limbs toward Samantha. Unsure of the gesture's meaning, she hesitated before reaching out cautiously. Their touch was brief, almost symbolic, a fragile thread connecting two vastly different worlds. When the meeting ended, the humans returned to the Odyssey, their hearts heavy with uncertainty, but also hope. The ceasefire was fragile, held together by trust that could shatter at any moment. Still, it was a start. Back on Earth, news of the agreement spread quickly. People celebrated cautiously, aware that peace wasn't guaranteed. Admiral Erickson grudgingly admitted that Samantha's gamble had paid off, though he warned her not to get complacent. "This isn't over," he said. "Those aliens are still out there, watching, waiting." Samantha didn't argue. She knew, better than anyone, how precarious their situation was. But for now, humanity had a chance to rebuild, to grow stronger, and to prove that cooperation could triumph over conflict. As the Odyssey drifted through space, its crew reflected on all they had endured. They were battered and scarred, but alive. Together they had faced an unimaginable threat and emerged victorious, not through force alone, but through courage, ingenuity, and a refusal to give up. In the distance, the stars twinkled like silent witnesses to humanity's resilience. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but somewhere among those endless lights lay the promise of a brighter future. A future where humans and aliens might one day stand side by side, united by hope instead of fear.